Listen, I was originally planning to just talk to you guys today about the unsearchable, absolute riches of the wisdom of God. But honestly, it became completely necessary to shift gears and address the sorceries of our present age. Welcome to This Explainer. Right now, we are looking at a fatal spiritual emergency unfolding within the community of faith. We're witnessing an invasion, not by armies with swords, but by subtle infiltrators bringing the intoxicating venom of false divination right to our doorstep. So today, we are breaking down a powerful apocalyptic warning against spiritual deception, and we're going to map out exactly how to protect the house of the Lord from the enticing but completely empty promises of modern soothsayers. Right off the bat, the text identifies the threat. It calls them stars of darkness and whisperers of delusions. And the scary part? These aren't obvious pitchfork-carrying bad guys. They are practitioners of ancient arts who have quietly, subtly crept into the ranks. They claim to possess secret knowledge, right? Boasting that they can somehow read the secrets of the winds or map out the precise pathways of tomorrow. But make no mistake, they operate by a spirit that is absolutely not from above. Their whole goal is the subtle corruption of the minds of the simple, pulling the flock away from divine truth and leading them straight into a midnight fog. Okay, let's dive into this. Theologically and philologically, what exactly is this enemy we're dealing with? A soothsayer or diviner, in this specific context, is described as a wandering fire in a midnight fog. They promise to guide the wary traveler, but their light literally leads headlong over the cliff of destruction. They aren't delivering divine truth. Instead, they traffic in human vanity. Basically, they're spiritual mercenaries. They make their living by reading shifting sands and casting shadows, entirely abandoning the living oracles of God for a quick buck. Which brings us to a really profound philosophical danger. Why on earth do people follow these whispers of delusions? Well, it really comes down to the timeless battle between desire and truth. These soothsayers are so successful because they tell each person exactly the lie their itching ears long to hear. Rather than facing raw, rugged truth, which, let's be honest, often requires endurance and repentance and actual faith, human vanity just desperately wants a shortcut. We want flattering whispers instead of the piercing, life-giving truth of the living God. The text gives us this incredible, devastating narrative to explain this, called the Peril of the Painted Mirror. Picture this. A governor wants to build a highway through a super treacherous mountain range. But before his true mapmaker can even arrive, this smooth-tongued soothsayer shows up with a gold-framed mirror. He says, "Look into this glass, O governor, for it does not show the rugged rocks as they are, but as your heart desires them to be." Enchanted by this beautiful reflection of a totally smooth road, the governor foolishly sends his laborers into the mountains. But as night falls, the road just vanishes beneath their feet. The entire caravan plunges into a hidden canyon, leaving the governor to weep over the bones of his army. The lesson here is pretty brutal. A beautiful lie is a far more deadly weapon than a sharp sword. That parable exposes the grave ethical failure of seeking out secret knowledge. I mean, look at the mercenary nature of this deception. The soothsayer in that story, he completely fled the province with the governor's gold. These diviners always demand a tribute of silver for their enchantments, exploiting people when they are most desperate. It is a fatal error to abandon established divine laws and true maps just to follow shifting omens and flattering illusions sold by an absolute fraud. And this brilliantly illustrates the recurring patterns of spiritual vanity. When we place these three parables side by side, the deception is just so clear. We just discussed the painted mirror, where prioritizing desire led straight to death. Next is the cloud catcher, where desperate people in a bitter drought pay silver to a guy claiming his colorful net can literally trap rain clouds. The cloud passes, not a single drop falls, and the valley is left twice as desolate by a man who literally traded in wind. Finally, there's the blind astrologer. A ship's captain actually abandons his heavy safety gear and anchors because an astrologer promised a smooth sea based on the stars. When a fierce tempest hits, the ship is shattered on sharp rocks, and a starving city never gets its grain. In every single case, relying on illusions doesn't just destroy the individual, it destroys the entire community. Now, you have to understand, these aren't just neat little fables. They represent a really deep historical reality. These contemporary stars of darkness are simply putting new faces on a very ancient rebellion. The text urgently connects these modern deceptions back to specific scriptural warnings. The prophets of old constantly commanded God's people to avoid those who consult the dead or divine for silver. This echoes the explicit commands we see in verses like Deuteronomy 18 and Leviticus 19, which strictly forbid turning to mediums and seeking out spiritists, flat out declaring it an abomination to rely on them over God. History is flashing warning signs at us through these ancient precedents. When modern seekers turn to horoscopes and energy alignments and mysticism, they are repeating the exact same spiritual prostitution as those who followed Jezebel, who literally seduced servants with dark arts and casual compromises. They're following the pattern of Elimus the sorcerer, perverting the right ways of the Lord just for a profit. It is the exact same spirit as the Israelites building the golden calf in the wilderness, turning their backs on the true cloud of glory just so they can bow before a god of their own making. Let's move to and see how this builds, because ultimately, this is about basic survival. We have to discern the difference between the true shepherd and the false prophet. The false prophet is always going to promise you freedom and secret knowledge, yet they themselves are tightly bound in heavy chains of deception. Their words? They're really nothing but the bubbling foam of a polluted spring.
We absolutely must contrast the intoxicating venom of the fortune teller with the living oracles of God. Think about it. The diviner relies on casting lots, reading shadows, and trying to stand on the shifting sands of human horoscopes, appealing purely to our vanity. But on the flip side, the solid rock of the scriptures offers true counsel and demands a simple, unadulterated faith. God is not going to divide his glory with the stars, and he definitely doesn't share his counsel with the whispers of the dark.
So the crucial point is this: we literally cannot afford to be passive here. The text shifts gears here into a sharp diatribe, which is a classic rhetorical structure right out of first-century biblical discourse. It is a severe, unapologetic, apocalyptic warning directed at a foolish generation that has left the straight and narrow highway of truth to wander around in the dark forests of spiritual sorcery. It forcefully demands that we ask ourselves this incredibly piercing question: how long will you run to the gates of the diviner, begging for a glimpse of tomorrow while trampling the holy commandments given to you today? People boast of their spiritual enlightenment, yet they're completely blinded by glittering trinkets, buying a destiny made of dust and cobwebs. They've taken the house of prayer and turned it into a den of mystics. The call to action is so unbelievably urgent. Awake from this hypnotic sleep before the final storm breaks upon your uncovered head. We are being commanded to smash the mirrors of our delusions, throw away the scrolls of divinations, wake up from the deadening whine of these enchantments, because, guys, the storm is coming, and a painted mirror is not going to shelter you from the rain. Now, what's really interesting about this next point is that it gives us a really clear, actionable theology of restoration. It's not just about what to run away from, it's about what to actively do. Step 1, discern the voice of the true shepherd from the venom of the deceiver. Step 2, actively reject those mystical substitutes, literally smash the mirrors. Step 3, return to the unadulterated faith, planting your feet firmly back on the solid rock of truth. And finally, step 4, engage in spiritual rescue. We have to snatch our brothers and sisters out of these subtle traps, weeping for the time they've wasted chasing after shadows. Which leaves us with one final, super provocative thought to ponder as we close out this explainer. The warning has been sounded loud and clear. The painted mirrors and the colorful nets of the soothsayer have been exposed for the absolutely deadly frauds that they are. So as you walk forward today, will you trade the solid rock of the scriptures for the shifting sands of human horoscopes and demonic delusions? Or will you stand firm, fully rooted in the true, life-giving oracles of God?